am so fascinated about what you said, and I think it is such an inspiring thing because I think about how many people wait to do what they love for the kids, for the whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And some might think 45 sounds like really late, or 44 to be starting a career. What was it in you that said, I'm doing it anyways? I'm putting everything into this? Because you could have looked at your previous attempts of doing this full time and said, well, it failed the first, second, and third time. Why am I even bothering now?
Yeah, I think it's because I'd waited so long. I knew that once my kids are bigger, I'd have more time and more money to, to
The
to
poor
follow
kids are listening like the number of times he mentioned the money. Kids gotta eat.
Yeah, they were sitting around the kitchen table. I was sitting around the kitchen table with them once I made this decision. They said, "Dad, what would you like to achieve now?"
Yes.
And then I said, number one, I would love. It just seemed like an impossible dream. I would love one day to get a Grammy nomination.
You said
I
it
said
to them?
that to them. And at that stage, it just seemed impossible because for South Africans, it's especially hard because the Grammy voting community are all in the US.
Yes.
So
And the categories can be limited in terms of what you can go in for.
Yeah. So then the second dream I had was to represent South Africa at a big occasion, which I did end up doing at the Soccer World Cup closing ceremony.
My
I got an opportunity.
goodness.
And then the third a goal that I had was to do a duet with Norah Jones. And because I was in love with her voice, she had just released that album, Come Away With Me, for which she won like 8 Grammys.
That was her year, hey?
Yeah, that was her year. And I since discovered the story of how she made that album. But that's the one goal around that kitchen table that I haven't yet realized.
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.
The upside of failure with Mr. Wouter Kellerman. And if you're like, that name sounds familiar, think of a flute, then a Grammy, and then another one, and you get Wouter Kellerman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Levo. So happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I just have to say, if you have not been given your flowers enough, you are phenomenal. We admire you. And for me, coming from a classical background, I always get excited seeing classical instruments getting some kind of commercial success, that being the foundation for so many of us in the music space. I mean, I remember being in the orchestra and all of those things. Yes.
What do you play?
So at the time, I was playing tenor recorder.
Oh.
And whatever percussion needed, the random triangle. But I'm more of a vocalist. So I was they say I'm a lazy mezzo, but I would be in the low registers. So I just love that. Flutes can be celebrated. You look at what Lizzo does, being a flute player, and you're like, I love that for classical instruments and for the young kids that are growing up choosing violin, choosing the oboe.
You know, the oldest flute that we know of is 60,000 years old, and it was made from the thigh bone of a cave bear.
What?
So 60,000 years, and even before that, people must have made flutes from reeds.
Yes.
Those flutes just doesn't survive for us to know about it. And language is only about 50 to 70,000 years old, because before that, the human vocal tract wasn't developed enough to make these sounds that we make. So flute playing and language developed together. So it's actually a hugely intuitive activity to play the flute.
When you were at that moment as a child where, you get influenced into either a wind or a string, and times have changed now because we understand the importance of being creative in childhood development. For you, what was the thing that made you say, this is it? Because I'm sure you dabbled, and then you find the one that you either a parent is drilling you, and then that just kind of sticks, or there was a connection.
my mom and dad took me to a symphony concert when I was 10 years old, and I just loved the flute from the start. I think maybe I sensed this long history of the flute. I don't think so, but I just loved the flute, and then I chose it immediately. And my teacher was sick the first day, and my mom would not allow me to take our rental flute out of the box because she was like worried we're going to break it when we try and put it together. So for a week, every day I opened the flute box and looked at it.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, that is so funny.
And I just looked at the flute and wondering how it would feel to play it. And so by the time I had my first lesson, I was raring to go. And I just loved it from the first day. There was never another option for me and never another choice.
Did it come naturally for you? Because obviously it's not straight up blowing.
Yeah.
The flute is a very different type of technique, and many people can spend many lessons. You haven't even got to the part of learning the fingering.
It's
just
very
to
hard.
get the
Just to make a sound is very
it's
hard.
so difficult. It's a very difficult
people don't
instrument.
know. They say I make it look easy, but it's really not easy. And I've been playing for many decades now every day, so I'd be very upset if I wasn't any good by now.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, I think about the phenomenal musicians I met early on in my career, like Carlo Mombelli.
Yeah, he's a good friend.
When we were on the road doing a theater production, and he was playing in the band, and this is like a musical genius. He was still doing scales every day.
Yeah, I do my scales
I was
every
going to
day.
say, yeah.
I do my scales, my long notes, because, with the flute, the different thing is that the color of your tone is the most important thing. And if you don't have that beautifully done, then nothing else works. So I do long notes just focusing on color. And for me, it's a meditative exercise. So even if nobody ever listened, I would just do it for myself.
And how far do you go into the scales? I mean, do you like what a John Baptiste does, where you start doing these like jazz scales and then you go into Lydian modes? And
Yeah, I do all the modes. I do
Yes.
all the jazz modes. I kind of cycle through them. So it takes me about a week of every day to run through all the scales. So I just choose some scales every day and run through them. And that's kind of my basic work, the work ethic that you need just to keep your basics up. Yeah.
Working with younger talent, do you think there is a certain discipline
Yeah.
that is not there for? And I'll give a very simple example. Sometimes being a good singer is one thing, but having the technique and the skill to sustain a career of decades without damaging your voice and all of those things. What do you see from all the different people you work with, collaborate with, teach?
Yeah, I think it's so important for a child especially to do that, to learn the discipline, because, what music teaches you is that today you can't do something and you practice, and tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, you can do it. So that is a beautiful lesson for any child, for anybody. I used to be an electronic engineer as well before I went to music full-time.
Wow.
And I ended up employing musicians in my engineering company, because the musicians
Had the discipline.
they wouldn't give up.
Yes.
They would be used to, I'm failing at this today,
Yes.
but if I just keep on practicing, I know it'll get better. While other people who haven't done music or maybe sports might not have been through that cycle. So it's a beautiful life lesson that kids learn by doing music.
That is the most clever strategy I've ever heard of. Like, hire the ones that they sucked at that Chopin, but they kept doing it until they got it right and mastered everything.
It becomes a habit just to keep on trying.
At what point then, throughout this, would you say it was just skills, and at what portion of it was talent? Because playing a musical instrument, you do get those freakazoids of people who pick up an instrument and they just naturally know how to play. And then you get other musicians that they've slept with that instrument.
Yeah.
They've taken it everywhere with them, and that's how they master it. And the reason I'm asking this is because it does go to show that only a smaller percentage of it ends up being talent. The other part is the hard is the.
I think yes. I think perseverance is 90%. I do have some talent, and I learned very quickly.
I love you. Like, I've got some talent.
But I actually, in my life, I'm more talented in the sciences, in maths. Maths is a bigger talent for me.
You are a left and right brainer.
Yeah.
Though.
So music is not my top talent. But music is my passion.
Yeah.
So when I left school, I didn't have money. I wanted to go study music, but we didn't have money. So I had to study something I could get a bursary for, and I was offered an Anglo-American bursary to study engineering because I had good marks in maths and science. So I ended up studying engineering, and that was just easy for me. Music I find harder. So when I left university, I had to work back for them, and then eventually started my own software engineering company. And every few years, I'd try and swap over to music. But
then the reality of the industry clubbed you in the face.
In the meanwhile, I had young kids, and I had custody over my kids, and I couldn't tour or anything. So my money would run out within 6 months. So I failed many times becoming a full-time musician. Eventually, I had to wait 20 years.
Wow.
I had to wait until my daughter left university, my son left school, and suddenly things became a whole lot cheaper.
You're like, is that what's been draining my bank account? These people that have not been leaving the house.
Yeah, and I was free to travel from then on. So then I tried again, and that's when things started to come together. But it was a big move to make. I was 44 when I made that decision to give up my engineering company and go into music full time.
Winning artist who clearly is a brainy brain that started elsewhere in the engineering space and then moved to finally doing his passion. We take your calls on 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. I am so fascinated about what you said, and I think it is such an inspiring thing because I think about how many people wait to do what they love for the kids, for the whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And some might think 45 sounds like really late, or 44, to be starting a career. What was it in you that said, I'm doing it anyways, I'm putting everything into this? Because you could have looked at your previous attempts of doing this full time and said, well, it failed the first, second, and third time. Why am I even bothering now?
Yeah, I think it's because I'd waited so long. I knew that once my kids are bigger, I'd have more time and more money to
the poor kids are listening, like the number of times he mentioned the money. Kids gotta eat.
Yeah, they were sitting around the kitchen table. I was sitting around the kitchen table with them once I made this decision. They said, "Dad, what would you like to achieve now?"
Yes.
And then I said, number one, I would love. It just seemed like an impossible dream. I would love one day to get a Grammy nomination.
You said that
I
to
said
them?
that to them. And at that stage, it just seemed impossible because for South Africans, it's especially hard because the Grammy voting community are all in the US.
Yes.
So
and the categories can be limited in terms of what you can go in for.
Yeah. So then the second dream I had was to represent South Africa at a big occasion, which I did end up doing at the Soccer World Cup closing ceremony.
My
I got an opportunity.
goodness.
And then the third a goal that I had was to do a duet with Norah Jones. And because I was in love with her voice, she had just released that album, Come Away With Me, for which she won like 8 Grammys.
That was her year, hey?
Yeah, that was her year. And I since discovered the story of how she made that album. But that's the one goal around that kitchen table that I haven't yet realized.
It's so going to happen, though.
I think it might.
Have you DM'd her?
I haven't
just,
actually.
Just literally just DM her.
Yeah, I haven't even reached out to her. And she's also nominated this year alongside us. And the the last time she was also nominated once with me, I was hoping I'd run into her at the Grammys, but that never happened.
No, I'm holding you accountable. Before you leave studio, you're gonna DM Nora Jones and say, "Hey, I'm gonna be in your hood soon." And it's been I'm holding you to it. But I am so inspired with what you've shared, because I have so many other ambitions that one becomes fearful because time has passed, that it's no longer possible.
Yeah.
And why is it that you were at a place where it's almost like you have nothing to lose? Because I sometimes think when people do go for those big dreams that seem far-fetched, you have to be in a zero Fs to give space.
Yeah, I think it helped. Because, that's why I had to wait so long, because I couldn't take the risk heavily earlier. I tried, but, my kids, I think I've got my journey to share with lots of women who spend their lives looking after their kids. And then after that, there's a whole long journey still ahead that you can possibly follow. And I think I like taking calculated risks. Before that, I'm a risk taker, but I always take the risks so that if everything possible goes wrong, I would just scrape through. I would just make it. And so that's kind of, so I was willing to give up everything. I was willing, because if I stayed with engineering, I would have been much wealthier.
Yes.
But I'm okay. I'm financially steady and stable, and I'm following my dreams. So it's a better way for me. So I'm happier.
And I'm sure your children have a much happier dad.
Yes, they do. And I think it was nice for them to be part of that journey, to see me voicing an impossible dream and then eventually actually get there.
Even the courage to say something which some people might have a weird facial expression to out loud in itself, I think, starts at the process for you.
Yeah.
In the time, though, that you were not able to fully fulfill your dream, were you practicing in between, writing in between?
Yes.
So it was still very much a part of your life.
Yes, I think, it doesn't help just to dream. You have to put in the work, So I was practicing every day, and every year I would allow myself 3 weeks away from the kids, and I would go overseas to do master classes with the best flute teachers in the world. So I learned a lot in those years, and I kept on developing. Yeah.
You are got another Grammy possibly on the way. Has the novelty worn off yet?
No.
Because, you've been nominated 5 times.
Yeah.
You've won twice. Do you still get the same goosebump feelings?
Yes, I do. Because, for me, it's about the music. And we worked so hard on this music. And you're creating the music while you're lonely. You're sitting at home creating a lot of music, and you don't know if it's actually going to, if people are going to get it, if they're going to understand what you intended. So to get a Grammy nomination is just such a recognition that you're on the right path, and it just means that yes, keep on going. And I think the Grammy for me is a tool to make sure people hear the music. So I'm absolutely not jaded.
You're like, excited. Another Grammy. Where am I going to put this one? Let's remember Jay-Z was drinking whiskey out of his Grammy. I think you must land in South Africa when you win and drink some mampur out of your Grammy. Of failure, we continue our conversation with Wouter Kellerman, who is honestly one of our most talented musicians, with, for me, a truly inspiring story of how it really is never too late. And I hope that those of you that are listening, I'm sitting here just like, today's the day. So those of you that are listening, I hope you do feel inspired. There is no cutoff point. There are no delayed anything. It's just a bit of redirection. And I hope you keep trying and keep practicing and get yourself skilled with whatever it is that you want to do with your life. 011 883 0702, the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702 for any of your questions. Wouter, I wonder, just in terms of how the music industry has so much pressure with certain genres where, we're in the era of the amapiano and you want your radio single to be radio singling because then your music is out there and. What was your strategy when it came to the promotional marketing part? Because having the product is the one thing, is one part.
Yeah.
The other part is the difficult part where, we've got a classic FM, you've got a few jazz slots here and there on your commercial stations, but some genres are very niche and not so easy. How did you work your way through that? Or is your team saying, we need to feature on Pabi Cooper's next Amapiano hit?
It's a combination of things. I think that there is validity in that. But,
Yes.
when I took 3 years to make my first album,
Why so long?
I'm an extreme perfectionist.
I was about to
Yeah.
say it's the perfectionist. You keep going back to fix and change and
Yeah, and we finished the whole album and I was still not 100% happy. And then
Was this self-produced, self-everything?
I actually got help in.
Yes.
I think you must use the best of the best people in the world to help you, and you do what you do, but I always end up co-producing. I get someone to produce, and then by the time the album's finished, I've co-produced it. So, but in this case, I wasn't 100% happy with the mix. So I thought, let me get the world's best engineer
Wow.
to mix it. And at that time, it was Nora Jones's engineer, Husky Hoskins,
Yes.
who had mixed that album. And I spoke to Johnny Clegg, who was a good friend of mine, and he hooked me up with his engineer who knew Husky. And I sent him the album, and he was I never expecting an answer back,
Yes.
And then he sent me a message back. He loves the album. He would love to get involved.
Wow.
He says it's already well mixed, he says, but he can try and help.
Tweak here and
yeah.
there.
So I went over to LA and met him and spent 2 weeks mixing the album with him. And when I came back, I was ready to launch this music and into the world. And I sent it to all the major labels and the small labels.
So as in at this time you were indie, you were funding
Yeah.
all of this yourself.
Yeah, exactly,
Yes.
yeah. And so and nobody wanted this album. I still remember a meeting with Universal, and I went there, and the manager there said to me, I'd set up a meeting, and he said to me, Wouter, we love you, we love your music, we think you're amazing, but it's just not our thing.
Yeah.
And I looked on his table. There was my CD that I'd posted him still in the plastic. He hadn't listened to it.
I thought you were going to say he was using it as a coaster for his cup, because that's better. At least your CD could be a coaster.
At least it's open. It's at least useful.
That is so heartbreaking.
Yeah, and nobody wanted this because it was niche music. I make kind of world music. And we eventually found a small label that was willing to take the risk. And the first album was SAMA nominated. The first DVD won a SAMA, and we got fantastic press. But it's not pop music. So I discovered, we released 3 or 4 CDs, entered everyone in the Grammys. Nothing happened. It was great quality music. But then I figured out you can't just make the music. You have to do the promotion. And you can't just say, okay, I need a manager to do the promotion, or I need the label to do the promotion. When you start off, you have to do it yourself. And so you need to be a 360-degree musician who can not only do the music, but also deal with all the business and the marketing and promotion. And once we started doing that, then the chips started falling into place. And our first album that we majorly promoted was called Winds of Samsara, and that ended up winning the Grammy.
So did some people start to call you the ones that didn't open your CD before?
They did, yeah.
And did you say, hello, this is Grammy winner Wouter Kellerman? What did you say to them?
No, I never mentioned it to them. That I knew. They never knew that I knew. So I just kept quiet, because I also understand the labels have to make money, and I'm a 40-something. I wasn't as sexy and young as I used to be.
Because
And I play the flute. I
you
don't
were
even
like,
sing.
what if I'm half naked with a flute? I mean, I was just thinking to myself, because obviously it comes from the fact that people have to be skilled in marketing that type of music, but also have to be personally invested because you can't sell something you don't believe in. And for some reason, something that crossed my mind is like, how Kenny G was just the Kenny G that everybody knew. And that would have been my strategy. As I would have said, okay, cool. Kenny G came out with a sax. He made it commercial. He's got a whole bunch of songs that people don't know the lyrics to. They don't know the titles, but they'll be like, sweet, 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 sweet. My strategy would have been like, we need to make you like a Kenny G where we just put you anywhere and everywhere. But let's fast forward now to the part where finally things are moving. It's almost like you were the only person on your team, in inverted commas, believing in yourself. What was it that made you say, this is not a sign that I should stop. It's actually a sign I must continue. Because maybe after the 7th time you're dropping off CDs that you are paying for yourself. Every CD you're dropping off, you're like, oh my gosh, 60 Rand is going. What made you say, I need to keep going and not, okay, it's a sign, I tried, it didn't work?
I just wanted to give it everything I had. And I knew there was more to give. So I just thought, let me get the promotion angle right as well, because I knew I'd got the musical angle and I'd done everything I could from the music side.
Yes.
But then I thought, let me just do the promotion as well. I remember for our launch of my first album, we booked the UJ Theatre for 3 nights. So that was my first ever non-classical show.
Wait, and that's like a 1,000-seater?
That was the smaller one. I think it was a few hundred.
Okay.
It was a few hundred. And we didn't realize that's not what musicians do. You book one night, you don't book a run of 3 nights. So Tulsi Pillay, my manager and business partner, and I and my kids were out during Joy of Jazz. We printed about 100,000 pamphlets, and we're putting pamphlets on the cars, just to try and get people to the shows. But I knew it did help me that I had a business, an engineering business side, because I knew things are possible. You just have to find the way through. You have to fail many times, and then every now and then you make a little breakthrough, and then you double down on that breakthrough. And that's kind of been what my strategy was.
In terms of, managing the money aspect, because like you say, a person can be having their 9 to 5, their bill paying thing, and they have this passion that you're just pouring money into it. What was your philosophy and approach? Because on the one hand, you were going to be like, well, there's bills to pay. And on the other hand, you're like, if I don't pour everything in, I mean, for somebody to say I want the best, producer or engineer in the world to mix my album, that is
that's
thousands
expensive.
And
thousands of
he's
dollars.
not sitting here going, oh, we love Mandela, so we'll give you a 20% rate.
No, I just didn't care about the money. I just put everything into it because it's my passion. And but the lucky thing is that I had already brought my kids up, and that I didn't really need much. My house was paid off. I had a car that was paid, and the kids were sorted. So I could risk spending all my money on music. And still today, I don't. If there's something that can make the music a tiny little bit better, I'll just spend on it without thinking about it. It's not financially the best strategy, but it's my passion. It's what I live for, is to create this beautiful music. So I'm not very careful with the money. I kind of decide what I need to spend money on, and then I decide how much I should earn, and I work towards that. So I don't work on a budget and say, okay, this is how much I've got to spend. My budget's how much would I like to spend, and then how hard do I have to work to make that money?
Yes, I got you. 9 minutes to 3 o'clock, the upside of failure with Wouter Kellerman. 011 883 0702. The WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. We've got some voice notes.
Hi, Relebogile and Wouter. My name is Veronique, and I was blessed enough to sing a couple of songs on his very first album that got good recognition. And I love your work ethic, Wouter. It was always such a pleasure to be with you in studio. Your attention to detail, the passion with which you give your craft. So I'm just rooting for you all the way, and long may it continue. Sending lots of love. Okay, bye.
Hi, Relebogile. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm one of those who struggle to pronounce your name. I am listening to the interview with your guest. I will admit that I don't know his music at all, but the life lessons that he's sharing, this is so powerful. I'm an upcoming author. I am self-publishing a book. So hearing how he made it out all by himself, by believing himself, funding himself, waiting for the right time, pushing every opportunity, opening every door. I see the journey that I must take in the promotion of my book, because I believe it is a wonderful product that people should read. So I'm very, very, very inspired. Thank you so much. And now that I know and have heard about him, I'm definitely going to look for his music and hear what he's about. This is Clement from Johannesburg.
Thank you so much, Clement, and also Veronique. How does it feel getting that type of feedback?
Oh, no, it's so amazing. I still remember working with Veronique. We created a beautiful tango song, and she sings beautiful Spanish.
Oh, wow.
She doesn't speak Spanish, but she pronunciates it so well that you would never, and she's got this exotic voice. And we did this tango it was the first track of my first album.
Yes.
And she's just amazing. And yeah, it's fantastic to hear from Clement as well. Good luck with your book, and just don't stop trying is the message.
Yeah.
So we've over the years, just going back to your ideas about how commercial you should be, we have done some very commercial work. Last year I collaborated with Diamond Platinums, who's West Africa's biggest star.
Yes.
And I started, I've done some work with the Ndlovu Youth Choir.
Yes.
Doing an Ed Sheeran song, a Zulu version of it, and Mzansi, with the Mzansi Youth Choir, we did a version of Calm Down, Grandma's Calm Down. And initially we also I did on YouTube, I did a version of the Game of Thrones theme with only flutes, nothing else.
So you did all the parts?
All the parts on flute.
Beautiful.
It's on YouTube.
I will check it out.
Yeah, and even Havana, the song.
Havana.
Yeah, Havana.
Oh my goodness.
And that's also an all flute song. So I kind of cross over into a lot of different, I'm a very curious listener, so I cross over into all the different genres.
Are you happy that your music career does not require you to be writing lyrics and using words?
Oh, I believe you can sometimes say things with instrumental music that you cannot say in words. And that's kind of how I think about it. But I love words. Leonard Cohen, for example, is such an amazing poet, singer. So I think I'm still getting there. I would like to write a song with words one day.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that one.
I'm like you as well. You just sang, off air to me. You sound beautiful, and I also one day want to sing something. But Tulsi, my manager, thinks I should not.
Can I tell you the reason I'm going to say he must, right? But Hugh shared the story with me about how when he met Louis Armstrong, and he was imitating his voice, he's saying, you sing, boy. And he's like, no, I play, Trump is like, you need to sing, boy. And he's like, I'm not a singer. And Louis Armstrong said it doesn't matter, but you sing and make that part of your thing, because then you can do more.
Exactly.
So I think it's something to look into. I know your manager's very concerned. But, just one day drop a little verse.
I know.
There, surprisingly.
I am planning to. I haven't actually told her yet. I haven't told her. Now it's coming out on air. But I am planning to do that, yes.
When it comes to everything you have gone through, you are going to be recognized by, it's the university tonight the UJ Alumni Dignitas Award. You look at the Grammys, you've got another one coming up soon, but you also look back at your journey. What would you say the biggest lesson is you've learned about failure?
I think for me, the biggest lesson is what my mom told me when I was very little. And she says, talent is not what will get you there. Perseverance is what will get you there. So I think you can dream, but you have to put in the work. You need to dream and you need to believe it's possible, but you have to put in the work and persevere. So for me, it's all in one word, perseverance.
I would take it a step further. I think you are very stubborn. And is he stubborn? Yes, yeah, she says yes. I think it is the level of perseverance you have to be at is so stubborn that there's nothing, not a pothole, not a nail in the tire, nothing will keep you away. And I know people think of stubborn in a different context, but I think you have to have a certain level of stubborn and a certain level of arrogance to have been able to do what you have done.
And you have to expect success. I was expecting success all the way. So I think you have to expect it. So when it comes, you recognize it. A lot of people who don't expect it, an amazing opportunity comes their way and they don't recognize it because they weren't expecting it. So that's part of it.
So on that note, the next time you and I have an interview together, it's because we'll be talking about your collaboration with Norah Jones, where you're also singing the bridge, right? Say yes.
That would be amazing. I'd be amazed.
Wouter Kellerman, ladies and gentlemen, find him on the socials. We are rooting for you. That Grammy is definitely coming back home.
Thank you so much, Liv. Lovely to talk to you.
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.